Hey, what's good, what's good, what's good? Welcome to Reflections of a DJ, the R.O.A.D podcast presented by DJ City and Beat Source. We're here in New York City and we have invaded the Sound Collective. Rest in peace to DJ Never, Never Forever. That's our brother. I am one of your hosts, DJ Crooked. We got Brooklyn's beloved DJ Goldfinger in the building.
What's up, we're up.
What's good, sir? And we have a special guest. I've known this DJ, producer, curator for a long time, maybe almost 20 years or so.
Yes.
Kind of came up in New York together. You know, he's one of my favorite DJs, he's one of the most creative mixtape DJs, producers, and curators in hip hop and music. He brings this like cinematic autobiography type of element to mixtapes that's never been done before. His Best of series is probably one of the most unique mixtapes ever made. He incorporates these rare interviews, these cameo freestyles, and more. He's a musical storyteller. You know, Rolling Stones called him the music guru. Questlove, you know, I feel like you're an honorary Philly resident right now, but you deal with a lot of Philly heads. But Questlove called him the most creative mixtape producer of all time. We have J.Period in the building.
J.Period, what up?
What up?
What's good, sir?
Word up, man. Glad to be here. It's a pleasure.
I've been trying to get you on the podcast for a minute, maybe a few years now.
Yep.
And, you know, ever since you dropped I Got a Story to Tell.
Yes, sir.
And we couldn't make it happen. And I'm finally glad we linked up at the playlist retreat.
Yes, man. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, first time caller, long time listener up in here. 'Cause I've been a fan of the podcast myself. So
man.
Glad to be here.
We got a long history because I remember coming up in the 2000s. Goldie, you probably know J.Period from his mixtapes.
Yes.
You had him at Beach Street in Brooklyn.
Yes.
Yep.
But yeah, when I was coming up in like the Manhattan bottle service club era, you were just destroying it, getting mixtape awards left and right, and you were just dropping these classic mixtapes. And I was just a big fan, but we were like in two different realms.
Yep, but connected through a lot of folks.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even remember when's the first time we met.
I don't know,
but
man.
I know it's through DJ 11.
Yeah, 11,
and
MOS. Yep.
MOS.
Yep.
And every time I hung out with him, it was like this debauchery, but on a gentleman level. You know, like
I don't know if I can stand by that, but the gentleman part for sure.
Yeah, like when we would go out, it would be like a gentleman's like debauchery level, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, but it was very classy the way we would party on a very gentleman-like level.
Okay, that's
yeah.
Early 2000s in New York, you know, all of us would be done with our sets at like 4 a.m. and go looking for something to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now it sounds even worse.
it definitely sounds bad.
That sounds bad even saying it right now, but no, it was just ending up at Wohop and, you know, hanging out and talking trash.
For sure.
And there was like a core of us, and you know, those guys that are still around rocking, like it's awesome to see and still be connected to.
It's crazy seeing you at the playlist retreat, because it's like I remember like when I moved to Vegas, there was probably like I probably like haven't seen you like when we saw each other at the playlist retreat. We're like, damn, it's probably been like 15 years.
Been a minute, yeah.
Since I saw you.
Yeah, probably last time I was in Vegas for a show, and it's been a minute. Yeah. So I remember stopping through your store at one point.
Yeah. That's a while back.
Yeah, man, that's a while.
You've been doing so much. There's so much to talk about. You have your live mixtape at Lincoln Center, which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about that.
The Grammys.
The Grammys. You know, 50th anniversary of hip hop last year. Hamilton mixtapes. We can go on, but I want to start from kind of the beginning in the 2000s.
Yeah.
And I'm also curious because I was talking to Goldie about this. You're not from New York, but you're from Cali?
Yep. I grew up in L.A.
In L.A.
All right, so when are you coming to New York?
I mean, I grew up in L.A. I went to school in the Bay. Probably the only Stanford-educated DJ on the map.
Wow.
And I came to New York, you know, really in pursuit of my hip-hop dreams in 99. And it wasn't necessarily with a clear vision in my head. You know, I got a job doing, you know, basically like HTML coding, just off like a required course that I'd taken at school. And I came out here and started DJing. Before I even started DJing, I went and got my first set of 1200s. And it's kind of a crazy story. You know, when I was in college, I was overseas at one point, and I met some of the members of Rocksteady crew, including DJ Scribble.
Oh, wow.
And when I came to New York, I went to the Rocksteady anniversary, and I got my little courage up to go say, hey, do you remember me? And he's like, oh yeah, like of course. And Scribble ended up taking me to Rock and Soul to get my first set of 1200s.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of really how I started.
In 99?
This was in 2000.
Wow.
So he took me to, and it was right when Traffic Jams was like just about to pop off. So I'm in, his truck driving, listening to like, the freestyles that would become that album, one of the first DJ albums. And it was inspiring. And so I got my 1200s. I had a party that night to celebrate. And some friend of a friend's is like, oh, my birthday's next week. Can you play my party? Like, awesome. I played the club. It was a place called Tribe on 8th Street in the East Village, little bar. And the owner of the bar hears me.
Was it downstairs?
No, it was a little corner spot.
Okay.
I think on 8th Street, I forget, and maybe on First Ave. And basically, the owner hears me. He's like, what are you doing next Friday? And thus begins my DJ career on the weekends.
Wow.
Doing places like that. I meet the Lyricist Lounge guys, Tamir.
Right.
Lyrics to Go.
Lyrics
who you know.
to Go.
Yep.
That's when I was a rapper. On Lyrics, I was producing and rapping at on Lyrics to Go.
Word
we were
up.
doing like shows at BMCC and stuff like that.
I love it.
What's good, everyone? This is Neek from Reflections of a DJ, the R.O.A.D podcast. Whether you're just discovering the R.O.A.D podcast or a day one listener, if you've been loving the content or want more, here's your chance to support the pod. Get closer to the action and unlock exclusive content by joining our Patreon. This is for loyal listeners who want early access to new episodes 3 or 4 weeks ahead, your name in the credits of every video episode, and access to our exclusive R.O.A.D edit packs. Now, for the hardcore supporters, we've got our Tier 2 Roadie for Life subscription for just $10 a month. This is an all-in package. You'll get everything from Tier 1 plus a monthly bonus episode, early access to our R.O.A.D 10 and R.O.A.D Talk interviews, behind-the-scenes content, our In the Crate series, along with exclusive unreleased content. This is your chance to support the podcast and get more of what you love. Join the family today at patreon.com/R.O.A.D podcast. Check the link in our descriptions. We appreciate you. Let's keep this journey going.
Now, did you have any musical background or, from before?
So you weren't
99?
DJing in Cali.
Well, the truth is, music was in my life from the time I was a kid. My father, who was a teacher when I was growing up, was a folk musician, before that.
Yeah.
He was a songwriter. So music was everywhere. And I got all different genres. My father was like folk music. My mom was, rock and roll. My sister, who was older, was like Fishbone and Bad Brains and stuff like that. And I just was born at the right time. And when I saw Beat Street, I was like, what is that? I need to go there and be a part of that. And it just was a thing of being a fan, honestly. So I wasn't even DJing or doing any of that. I just was a fan, and I was absorbing all this music.
Were you collecting at the time?
Oh, yeah. I had the illest CD collection. I would drive around in high school, and it would be funny because I would DJ. Every song would make me want to hear another song. I have the book open on my lap and would just put another CD in. And then when I got to college, my freshman dorm was having a party, and I was like, oh, I'll DJ the party. And I did it with 2 Discmen and a mixer. And the crazy part is somebody hears me at that, and they're like, oh, can you do my off-campus party? And I do that party. And at that party, as it happens, is the heads of all the black fraternity and sorority heads are at this party. So I then get hired to do the Delta Black Family Gathering.
Wow.
I get hired to do parties for Alphas and at Ujima at Stanford. But this is literally all with 2 Discmen and a mixer.
Wow, so
I'm
it's
just
like
selector.
Yeah.
But I was killing it, and I knew my music.
Yeah.
So, what had happened was it started to become a thing that I loved, but I had no visions in my mind of doing this forever.
Not until you got to New York and you talked to Scribble. Like what actually brought you to New York?
So, I mean, look, what it was really was that, graduating from school, I had a choice of if I was going to go on to grad school.
Yeah.
And what I wanted was to pursue something creative.
What would you have done in grad school?
Teacher, probably.
Really?
Yeah. So both my parents are teachers. That's kind of every job I ever had was teacher before this.
Really?
Yep.
I'm trying to see where, obviously you have a love of music, and I'm trying to see where the storytelling and the obsessive aspect of it came into play, and it kind of came together with DJing. Do you know what I'm saying?
For
and I was
sure.
wondering if there was a major or minor in Stanford or something that you kind of got into.
I mean, yeah, for sure. I think the storytelling part was just deeply ingrained. As a kid, stories were everything. I don't know. It was just the best way to teach a lesson was with a story. So I remember just everything was a story, just like everything was always music. There was always just music in the background growing up. And so I think I just absorbed those things in a certain kind of way. When, when I discovered hip hop, that was sort of the thing that opened the door. When I got to Stanford, and I started really wanting to explore that, I ended up getting a major. I had what was called an individually designed major. I didn't even know I was going to talk about this on the R.O.A.D podcast.
Sorry.
But no, I had an individually designed major called Identity, Mind, and Multiculturalism. And it was basically about like merging and mixing identities. And in some ways, that is the seed of everything I'm doing still.
Yeah.
And I think, everything I'm most interested in exploring is all about where the points of connection between things are and how to blend things together. Obviously, these are all very DJ, related things in terms of mixing music and cultures. And the further I've gone along in this, the more I feel like that's true. That it's like been very full circle for me. That now when I get back around to it, the stories are a thing I'm known for. And it's not just the music, it's the merging together of those things.
Yeah, because no one's ever approached a mixtape in that way. Like when you hear the best ofs, it's just kind of like, it's a compilation of honestly technical skills and selection, but it's also like semi-party rocking.
For sure.
But there's these ups and downs of a mixtape, but you really had this cinematic Ken Burns approach to everything.
Yep.
And I want to go through the mixtapes and how it's did, but I wanted to talk about where that came from and where in your head did that idea to start putting those best of CDs and putting it together that way.
I mean, to be honest, again, I think I traced the lines of the seeds of storytelling, and I was always a movie junkie also, growing up. So all the lines of movies, I spoke in movie lines, to my friends just in life. And so I think that's there. And then, I think there's this moment where my man G Brown got a shout out also from the early 2000s, sort of DJ circuit.
Right.
He invited me to the listening session for Godson, for Nas, when the album was coming out. Oh. And there's a bunch of college radio DJs in the room. And I was not a college radio DJ, but I got in the room and they all put their recorders down. And there was a rumor Nas was going to show up. And he really did show up, and he starts talking and telling stories, and I put my little mini disc in front of him. And while I'm listening to these stories, I'm like, yo, what would be super ill is to take this and mix it with the music. And so I went up at the end and I sort of pitched this idea quickly and asked him for a drop. He gave me the drop, and I went home and I made this thing that just, it sprung into my mind.
The Best of Nas?
The Best of Nas.
That was the first one?
Yep.
Wow.
That's the very first one.
We did numbers on that one.
Yeah, at Beat Street.
Yeah, man.
How many else sold? I don't know.
It was ghetto platinum.
Enough to get them locked up.
One of the things this is one of my favorite stories. One of the guys that I met early on, also Q Unique from Arsonist and Rocksteady crew. Yeah. And Q Unique had called me after I put out the Nas. I had the Nas mixtape and Fat Beats and DJ Honda store, and that was pretty much it on consignment. And he calls me. He's like, "Yo, I'm in a barbershop in Bushwick, and they're playing your Nas mixtape." Wow. And I'm like, "Yo, check it if it's the really one of mine." He's like, "Nah, it's a bootleg." I'm like, "Oh, what does that mean?" Right. It's like, "Bro, that means you go and make up as many as you can and go to Canal Street and try and hustle them off."
Right.
And that's literally how it started. It's like the Nas mixtape shows up in a barbershop. I go and I press 200 with Action Pack, and the next thing you know, I'm on Canal Street and I'm selling them to the vendors. And I cleared out of them after an hour, and I was like, "Wow, okay."
How many do you think?
200, as many as would fit in the backpack.
Were you pressing them yourself or
no? He had a tower, and so he was pressing them. And so we did a little experiment, and then the following week I went to Fulton Street. Same thing. I had one box was 200.
Yeah,
I could fit that in a backpack, and I went out, and they were all gone. And I was like, "Wow, I think I'm kind of onto something."
Wait, so is this your first mixtape?
Yeah, man, it's my first mixtape. I mean, we did a couple that were like, just different theme mixtapes or party mixtapes, or like I made like a demo to get club jobs that called Introducing J.Period. But this was the first of what became my mixtape series.
Yeah.
With the interview.
Because you had like a bunch of R&B mixtapes before, right?
Yeah, I did like, things with Echo and things with Cornerstone and different kinds of stuff. And, as a DJ, you can go to any zone. Yeah. But obviously my shit was like, the stories behind it and all that. I thought that was so ill.
Right.
So I wanted to spend all my time on that if I could. And then I got a call to do one for Big Daddy Kane. And this is for a Lyricist Lounge tour. And Kane was my favorite rapper. So
after your Nas...
Yep.
And then how did you make it? How did you make the Nas mixtape?
Like,
because it wasn't live, right? Did you do it in Pro Tools?
Well, back then I was mostly just recording from turntables, so like the blends were done live.
Okay.
I did do that in segments.
Right.
So I wasn't quite, at the production level, but I was recording these into a program called Sonic Foundry Vegas, which was like not made for that at all. It was like a video editing software.
Okay.
And I had a 2-track editor called SoundForge, and then a program
Was this
called...
how you were making your mixtapes?
Yeah, man.
Till when?
Sheesh. Till I learned Ableton in 2011. Wow. 2011.
So you did the Lauryn Hill, the Q-Tip, and all this?
Yes, sir. With
Really?
Sonic Foundry Vegas. Yep.
Now, what actually are the functions of this program?
So Vegas is a multi-track audio and video editing software. So it allows you to layer in audio. It's not connected to time, so you could just move things around. So any of those things, in order to make them line up, you had to make them line up manually.
Right.
You could like put an anchor here and an anchor
by
here,
ear,
and just do it like that. But I got a little more advanced with that, and then Acid was the partner program, and that was more like an early loop-based Ableton,
right,
where you could take loops and make things. So let's say by the time we get to the Lauryn Hill mixtape, there's 2 tracks I made, Water and the Soundboy Burial joint where I got Buju Banton, and still,
crazy.
Yeah, man, crazy. His manager lived on my block in Brooklyn, Tracy McGregor, and I pitched this idea to her. She was like, "I'll tell him." He's like, "Yeah, it was an amazing experience."
See, we got to let people know though. This is like kind of a rags to. This is moving very fast.
Yeah, man.
It's not normal. There's like. And Goldie, you would know this. There's motherfuckers that make mixtapes for like 5, 6 to 8 years,
right?
And they never pop off,
right? But I think it's the story that actually it was an angle that I think that he approached,
right?
That was kind of almost identified or tied to him in some type of way. You know what I mean?
What stood out, and they're probably I don't know the mixtape scene that well, because like when I heard your mixtapes, I was just like, these are phenomenal. Even before the best of, I think.
Yeah, because they were best ofs before then. Like, had Mr. C, did the best of, best of Biggie, best of Method Man and Red. You know what I mean? Like, he had done those. But it was, I think his was more cookies, exclusive joints, stuff like that.
Right.
His stuff was more of a story. It was more of a personalized,
like a documentary.
It's almost like a personalized event. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but not only that, even like you're in the trunk, the bass heavy classic hip hop. Look, like all of these DJs out there, young and old. If you haven't heard J.Period's mixtapes, you must listen to them. But even like the In the Trunk, which is basically a boom bap, like it's like a homage to bass boom bap hip hop.
Yep.
It's one of the most brilliant mixtapes I've ever heard.
Word, thank you. Shout out.
And that was before, and that was before the Nas, or around the same year.
That's like 2001. I think that's predates it by a little bit. But again, it was being creative. I mean, listen, I was making pause tapes and chopping little bits of things out of James Brown songs,
right?
And doing that way before I knew how to really do it. So my story is also like, as the technology has evolved and I've learned and I've been able to do more and more, my imagination has just gone crazier and crazier with the possibilities. Back then, it was like, what's the illest shit I can do with 2 turntables? And, JS1, who was my partner in making that mixtape, is one of the illest turntablists. So, you can't mess around. Like, you got to bring the stuff. And I think that in some ways, like, that's been my approach since jump. Like, I'm happy to be here. So it's like, if I'm doing it, I'm putting my foot in it, and let's go.
That's crazy. So how long would these mixtapes take you around?
Man, the early
the In the
ones,
Trunk versus like the best of Nas. Because I don't know, like after you started I used to make mixtapes just to like kind of get my name out there. It was like a business card, right? So like I would carry, like I would go out and I would go to the nightclubs and then I would hand them out. And it's like it's your way for people to listen to you and do it. But when your mixtape started coming out, I was like, I'm not doing this shit no more, because this motherfucker's making like crazy album mixtapes that I can. And I was just like, it's embarrassing, like for me to hand a mixtape to somebody.
The truth is, it just was what I wanted to hear. Like I just was a fan, and then the thought of hearing all of Nas's music in one place and their stories and stuff, I just was like, I want to hear what that sounds like, and that's really how it progressed. Kane, the request came. The Lauryn Hill one was entirely just me wanting to do that.
The Lauryn Hill was a turning point.
For sure.
Like when you got to another level with the best of Nas, Then you went another level with the best of Big Daddy Kane.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
That was the purple joint, the purple cover.
Yep.
I remember that joint.
And so like when the Big Daddy Kane came out, that's when you were kind of at the playlist retreat on one of our street road talk interviews. You said that was I made it moment when Pasta News from De La Soul was like, you saw Pasta News, you handed him your Big Daddy Kane mixtape.
Yep.
Because we always carried our mixtapes with us whenever we went anywhere. And he was like, yo, I got this shit already.
Yep.
But that was a turning point when you started seeing like your industry heroes. They're like, nah, I know your shit.
Yeah, man.
Because you're putting these mixtapes together in a different way, right?
Well, there's this magical thing that's happened. I was thinking about it earlier, actually, which is that, you know, when you love a thing as much as, you know, I would say we love hip hop, number one, if given the opportunity, you're going to want to show your best self. But two, you know, that's going to be reflected in what you make. So one of the things that's been ill is that when I would make one of these, let's say for, you know, Big Daddy Kane, the Nas one, I wasn't connected to Nas, I just made it. But the Big Daddy, and eventually it got back around and he heard it. But the Big Daddy Kane one, after I made it, I sent it to Kane. And Kane calls me up and he's like, you know, little bro, like you got to send me more of those mixtapes. And I was like, whoa. And that relationship led to a relationship that still lasts to this day. That's how Lincoln Center happens, is that I can call Kane and be like, yo, I got an idea now, because my stripes go all the way back to that mixtape. And basically what he heard in it was, which is that love, that then led to a relationship with him where then I'm, you know, doing shows with him. And then every time I end up doing one of these mixtapes, I become the tour DJ for the artist. So CL Smooth, Miss Lauryn Hill, you know, the Roots, and Black Thought still to this day. And I think it's because they see themselves reflected in it. Like I'm trying to show their best self. And that's like, as a fan, that's what you see. You want to, you know, paint it in the highest light type of thing.
But you're also you're a hustler.
For sure.
Like it's not easy to get access. You know, someone could make a best of mixtape and it could be amazing. But to really be adamant to get access to these people and to like build these relationships and show your work like that, you are really good at that. And because as much as like, you know, a mixtape DJ, they could just stay inside all day and just make mixtapes, but you were out. You were like out and about.
Now, how the hell you get Lauryn Hill? Because at that point she wasn't even around at that time.
But that's the turning point, because the Lauryn Hill was when you actually got the artist involved with the mixtape.
Yep.
Which was like, and this is like, we were talking about this, Goldie. This is when like Lauryn Hill was kind of like MIA.
Yep.
In the scene. But you somehow, like, how did you get access to Lauryn Hill to show her and like this potential mixtape that you're gonna do? Like, hey, like what was the selling point?
I mean, it's a crazy story. I think a lot of these are crazy stories.
Yeah.
And you know what it really goes back to is I'm out in New York one night with Tamir, and we run into Rohan Marley.
Lyrics to go, yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Tamir, the ultimate hustler.
Yeah.
And you know, out with Tamir, we run into Rohan Marley, and I give Rohan Marley a couple of mixtapes.
Oh, wow.
And
which ones did you give him?
I gave him the Big Daddy Kane, and I want to say I gave him at that point like a Sound Clash joint, like a dance hall joint.
Right, yeah.
And my dance hall joints are serious.
Yeah.
And so what happened was we hung out with him the whole night and ended up, you know, like getting pizza and whatever. He moves to LA, and a couple weeks later I get a call. It's like, yo, J.Period, I need some more of those mixtapes. I'm like, bet, you know, send him another batch of mixtapes. And as it happened that year, I was on a tour with a group of deaf poets where I was going to LA once a month. And every time I would go, I would just check in with Rohan, just like, you know, what's up? Here's some new joints.
Right.
And I would end up hanging out with him. And so for months I'm hanging out with him. When I finally get the courage to be like, listen, man, I have an idea. And I know it's like, you know, I don't want to, no pressure, but, you know, and I tell him about this mixtape. He's like, yo, that's got nothing to do with me, but here's her email. Good luck. And he gives me her email.
That's gold, right?
Yeah.
That's fucking...
That's Willy Wonka right there.
Yeah.
Kind of.
That's the golden ticket right there. Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
Well,
wait, so how long were you talking with him and like, you know, sending him
Months.
Months.
Yeah. I mean, it was more than talking to him. I would go there and hang out, and we would just kick it. And Rohan is an amazing dude. I mean, apart from the lineage, he's just a really amazing dude, and his energy is incredible. Anybody that knows him knows just his energy is awesome.
Right.
So I would just want to be around that, soak it up. I mean, listen, one of the times I went out there, he's like, yo, come meet me at the Beverly Hilton. I go to the Beverly Hilton. He's like, come to the parking lot. I go to the parking lot. He's like, come to the tour bus. I'm like, okay. I go to the tour bus. I get on the bus. There's a dread sitting in the driver's seat. And basically, I turn to the left, and it's every Marley brother. It's Ziggy, Kamani, Rohan, Steven,
Tito, Jermaine.
No, it was all of them.
Randy.
Crazy.
It was wild, and I ended up basically hanging out the afternoon. In fact, the Ziggy Marley drop you hear on the Lauryn Hill mixtape.
Yeah,
that's what he said. In Los Angeles on the tour bus. That was that day.
Wow.
And so some of it is just aligning of the stars, insanity.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I scripted this.
Right.
I think that the purity of intent really is a thing. I think if you love something that so that you're not out to get anything out of it. You just want to be a part of it.
Right.
Man, watch what happens. Because that's been my stories. I just want to be a part of it. And man, listen, when I get the opportunity, let's go. And I'm happy to be there. So what ends up happening is that I sent her an email, and literally within 5 minutes, she says, "Thank you, but no." Oh. And I was like, man. And I sat on that for a couple days.
But J.Period, you're not going to give up. You were relentless. I know this.
So basically, I thought about it a couple of days, and I was like, no, I'm compelled to do this. And I wrote back, and I was like, completely respect that, but I'm compelled to make this, so I'm going to make it. And I just sent that and put that out in the ether and didn't hear back. So then I just start trying to make the thing. But I don't have access to her. So I'm like, where can I get interviews? I'm ordering away. This is like pre-YouTube. I'm ordering away for like VHS tapes and trying to find interviews and stuff. And I can't find anything. And then months and months go by, and I'm building and I'm making, and I got all these ill parts, and the Buju thing has happened and so forth. And basically what happens is the deaf poets that I've been on tour with come to New York, and guess what's going to be Lauryn Hill's return to the public, but deaf poetry.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And so I find this out that she's going to be there. I send her an email like, I'd love to get a drop from you. Give her a heads up, never show up and surprise anybody.
Right.
And I go to the spot. And this is where, just like the hustle part, I go to all the security guards giving mixtapes like, yo, just out of curiosity, when the artists get here, which way do they come in? And just find myself to the, between the door and the stage. And it's just,
where did that come from you?
Probably my mom.
Your mom?
She said, ask for forgiveness, not permission. So
I love it.
Yeah, it's just it's like having a vision and the stubbornness to like really want to see if you can do it. It's like a little bit of the competitor in me. I want to see if I can pull this off.
Right.
And so what ends up happening is she walks in finally with a videographer, and the crazy thing happens. The videographer pulls the camera down. He's like, Joel, which is my real name, and she sees this and is like, who is this guy?
Yeah. Oh, you're in.
And so it's again one of these things like I couldn't have predicted that,
right?
But it just created this little moment where I acknowledged, and she's like, I'll get you after. I wait, patient, and she comes up after the show and she's like, what do you need? I'm like, this is Lauryn Hill with J.Period. This is the best of Lauryn Hill. And that's literally all she said.
Right.
So I got that.
She agreed. She didn't look at you funny, like.
No, man. But again, people treat you how you treat them.
Right.
So like I've never done that with her. I just talk to her like I'm talking to you guys, and she speaks to me back like that. Right. So it's like that seems pretty logical to me. So like the stories and all that, like the fear and all that is all just like once you start to see behind those doors, you're like, oh man, like this isn't really like that. But anyway. Moral to the story is I get the drop, I go around the corner, I do like my Rocky, like top of the stairs, like arms in the air, because I know I've just gotten the holy grail of drops. But the crazy part is I get back home that night, and maybe 6 months ago, I'd ordered a CD from Japan that said that there was interviews on the second CD, like an import. And that fucking night, when I got back, the shit was there. And I was like, oh yeah, this is meant to be.
That's fucking
and so it just was like that. And again, like I felt like it's partly a responsibility, like if you're really of this shit, like you feel a responsibility. If you're going to contribute to the lineage, like you better come correct. And I just, that is my approach with everything. So that's sort of how that happened. And then from there, it goes crazy because I had this amazing artist named Fuse Green, did a collage. So we didn't just do a mixtape. We did an 8-panel fold-out, poster that came with the mixtape.
Right.
And
it was a double disc.
It was a double disc,
which is like for mixtapes is unheard of.
Yeah, but there's no way to encapsulate because there's two sides to her.
It was like your life after death.
Kinda. The thing that makes her special, and to this day, is that she can sing with Aretha and she can rap with Nas. So it's like, who else can do that? You have to represent those two skills separately. And so that's what it was. And again, this is this crazy experience of someone that's off in the stars, but when she hears it, the following year at Mix Show Power Summit, her brother, as it turns out, is an IT, professional. He does all the IT for the Mix Show Power Summit. I meet him, and he bear hugs me, and I'm like, uh-oh. And he's like, yo, my sister has had your CD in her CD player in the kitchen for 3 months, and she won't take it out. And I just was like, and I retire,
That's it.
And that was that. And I was like, wow, if she's, I don't know, Q-Tip once said it took him a year to listen to the mixtape. When he finally did.
Yeah, the best of Q-Tip.
Yes.
That is another masterpiece where you took it to another level. But
before we talk about that's what comes next in the story, right. Because I make this Lauryn Hill thing, and then everyone's like, I want this. Can you make this for me?
Yeah, because it's like this. It's like when someone makes a documentary of someone's life and they showcase it in such a beautiful way, even more beautiful than they could even imagine it. Because, like these artists, they have a certain history and they remember things a certain way. They can remember some of the bad, some of the good. But the way you showcase it probably makes them remember things that they didn't remember. And you as a fan, and you're, like you said, your intention, you really want the best of them to shine. And these little details to shine. That as music lovers that we hear, these small little things like adding Bob Powers to the Q-Tip mixtape. If you don't know who Bob Powers is, you better know who Bob Powers is if you love Tribe Called Quest and Q-Tip. But those little things that you add as a fan, and like only a fan would know that Bob Powers is such an important, integral part of Tribe Called Quest and Q-Tip. But those little things that make them remember
attention to detail.
That remembers their career and their catalog. And I think you do such a great job of that.
Thank you, man. I mean, I the two highlights.
And then they connect with you, right?
Yeah.
They connect. They connect with you. They instantly connect with you, and they appreciate the work that you've done. Hey, yo, what's good? What's good? What's good? This is the R.O.A.D podcast, Reflections of a DJ. We're here in New York City, and we have invaded the Sound Collective. Now, I want to explain what the Sound Collective is. I got my man Lefty from the Sound Collective here. Lefty, thank you for having us and hosting this beautiful studio for us. Exactly what is the Sound Collective here in New York?
Modern, state-of-the-art facility with tons of production gear. And one side of it is you can be a member and you can come here and pay monthly to use the rooms and the gear and sign out time and our space. We have a state-of-the-art studio. We have all these production stations, DJ stations, instrument practicing rooms and such like that.
And you also teach. You have classes and sessions, right?
We have intensive programs, short-term programs that people can come and take Saturday classes on DJing, production.
There's kind of a community building within where there's DJs, producers, musicians.
Up and coming producers, people honing their craft and learning, and DJs and all these things. And they come here and practice, and we have all the new gear, so they come and check that out and get familiar. And a lot of DJs will come in from out of town, be like, let me get a day pass so I can just get a refresh on the 3000s and the V10.
And what's great is that a lot of our guests, everyone from Clark Kent to the technician to Camilo, they come in here and they're just holy shit.
You want to play with all the gear, man? Yeah.
I didn't even realize this, but you guys have studio spaces where people can do live streams and they can do their Twitch streams.
Yep. We got a whole green screen set up already, multicam, full on switcher. We also do a lot of events here. We're bringing a lot of outside talent, organizations. We got a big event coming up with DJ City, Beat Source, and Serato.
That's part of our family.
Yeah. We did a big one last year with them. We got another one coming up.
For our listeners, is there any way we could hook them up with a deal, or if they put in a R.O.A.D podcast code?
Yeah, tell me about it. What else do you have in vision for this deal? It sounds like we're well on our way. Why don't you tell them?
You're working with us where they can type in a code for R.O.A.D.
Yep.
And they'll get a month free, right?
Yeah, on our online platform. We have a whole online platform with masterclass style education.
Nice.
Different categories and everything, instruments, drums. And then we have these things that we're launching right now called Pro Paths. So you can choose, if you're a producer, you can take the Ableton Pro Path, the Logic Pro Path, Serato Studio. Goes through a wide variety of knowledge besides just stuff in that skill set and discipline.
So our R.O.A.D listeners, if you're in New York, you can check out their facility. You can do a day pass, a week pass, a monthly pass. You can check out their site. You have access to all the education online.
Soundcollective.com. We also have a YouTube channel that has some of our content from the educational courses, and all of our events are live streamed and put up there.
I hope we can come back here and use your facilities again.
Looking forward to it.
Shout out to Lefty and the Sound Collective. Thank you so much.
It's if you see the best in someone, generally that's what you'll get back from them. This applies to life as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think the benefit of just being a fan to this extent is that it's no bullshit. I really am trying to do that, what you're describing.
Yeah.
And again, I feel a responsibility to do that. But I think some of those moments, like for example, Q-Tip describing the way that a war tour comes from Jade Don't Walk Away, which now is like in the lore, from the mixtape. Amir Questlove, he didn't even know that story until he heard it on the mixtape. And so that part was amazing because I found like approaching this as a fan, that also is the way that I'm interviewing, I'm asking the questions. It's like what I'm getting from them, what I'm choosing to put on there is like all the stuff we want to know. Like what is Kapelka? All that kind of stuff, which is actually him saying gefilte fish, which is amazing. But that's what Kapelka is from the Tribe Called Quest. Basically, all that stuff. And then the other side is, Dave from De La, rest in peace. He once paid me the highest compliment, which was that, the mixtapes move in perfect time. Like you were saying before, like as a DJ, you learn those skills of like when to go high, when to go low, and how to keep it rocking.
Flows,
and how to know what's enough and what's too much. So like the early mixtapes, the Nas, there's only a little bit of interview. As it goes on, the stories start to expand because there's more of an appetite for that, and that's obviously my shit. So, by the time we get to the Q-Tip stuff, the stories are what makes that so exciting. Well, that and the fact that, everybody respects Q-Tip so much that I made like 20 asks to get hopefully 5 things back for that, and I got 20 back. So I was able to like...
Because by that time, you earned your chops. People know your name from the Lauryn Hill and on your previous mixtapes, and the door is just completely open, right?
I mean, I don't know that it was completely open, but it was definitely opening. The doors still continue to open. It's not like you burst through and you're there.
Bro, they completely opened. He had De La Soul rapping on Excursions. How did you get De La Soul to rap on Excursions for a Q-Tip, Best of Q-Tip mixtape? But that's insane. Because I was actually talking to Goldie. I was like, how did he get the Excursions instrumental? And then you said it was an import.
Nope.
I have an import.
That is Rashad Smith.
Oh, really? Nice.
So
Tumblr Dice. Shout out
Rashad Smith.
Wait, who's Rashad Smith?
Rashad Smith.
Tumblr Dice, the producer. He's very
Rashad Smith. He's got joints, man.
He's done doing it. He did Wuha. He's like
okay.
He's like a honorary member of Tribe with production because he did like the Lyrics to Go remix. Stuff like that. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the homie.
What was the Japanese import that you said that had?
This was called Lost and Found Instrumental.
It was a bootleg?
No, it was actual joint. Double album in Japan.
It just had all their instrumentals?
Had all the instrumentals.
Yeah, because you were playing me vibes and stuff and everything.
It was years before I got the official instrumentals.
Well, I worked in the record store. The guy my connection.
Yeah, you got all the bullets.
So,
hey, yo, relax.
That first batch came from... I want to say it came from Rashad. Shout out Ian Wallace, Sam Champion, who you guys know, remixer as well, who just had the illest collection. So he helped me source a lot of the samples. Again, this is like predates, who sampled and stuff like that. So we had to figure it all out ourselves. And man, like that one goes down in history for all those.
You had so many cameos. You had like...
So this is more of like collaborative. This one is a little bit more collaborative. The Q-Tip
one, well, again, it was like, I'm such a fan of Tribe that if I'm going to make a Tribe mixtape, it can't just be me mixing together Tribe records. It's got to be like, we're going to remake the stuff. So I went to Paz. I had met off the Big Daddy Kane and stayed in touch. And when I asked about this, he was like, well, because here's the secret of the Q-Tip mixtape. Q-Tip asked me to make the Q-Tip mixtape. Like I ran into him outside of Sirius Satellite, on XM. He was coming from Static Selector show, and I had the
Static Select.
and he had the
like
Lauryn Hill.
2007, 2008.
It's 2007.
Yeah.
So this is before his album. So he's in a creative thing because he hasn't put out the album yet.
Yep, it's before this. The mixtape was to promote the Renaissance. That was the whole idea.
Crazy.
Right.
So what ends up happening is I see him, and he's like, "Yo, that Lauryn Hill mixtape." He's like, "Could you do that for me?" And I was like, I literally like did that thing where you walk away.
Is this your first time meeting him or no?
Let's say yes. I met him one time in a club that I'm embarrassed about, and I had a hat on. I leaned in and I poked him in his eye. It was one of my most shameful moments. But I met him again you know, just at various, you know, things in New York, maybe APT or otherwise.
Right.
And but always super respectful. Like I hold him in the highest, you know, regard.
Oh my God.
And so what ends up happening is he basically said, "Can you make this for me?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And so now I feel the burden of responsibility, and that's what results in the Q-Tip mixtape. It's like, oh, we're gonna really make.
So you had a
shit.
Deadline.
Well, it was like I had a deadline, but I also was going with his endorsement to everybody. Like, I'm making this for Q-Tip.
So he knew about everything you were doing.
Yeah, he knew about it.
Wow.
I interviewed him. You know, he was like, "I'll give you 15 minutes." We end up, you know, interviewing him for an hour and a half, 2.5 hours, I want to say.
I was going to say 15 minutes.
Nah.
Come on.
Well, that's what he offered.
Yeah.
And then
he's not an interviewee guy.
No.
He hasn't done a lot of interviews.
But it just was again, the approach is like, with the things I'm asking him are all the stuff that's like, I know that he would want to know, you know, if it was some other artist. It's like, when you get to a certain level, the beauty of it is that you find that, like, these cats are nerds like us.
Right.
Like, really, like Dave Chappelle is a music nerd like us. And all these guys, you know, connecting on that level it's kind of hilarious, because they're our heroes.
Yeah.
But they also, you know, were listening, you know, to what they were listening to.
Right.
So listen, I mean, again, with Tip, you know, it took him a year to listen. When he finally did listen, you know, I saw him at the Peter Rosenberg event, and he kind of just did like one of these, and I just was like, oh my God. I was like, you know, you don't do that to me. Like, I do that to you. Like,
wow.
So
that's insane. Wait, so how
Yeah.
did he approve the mixtape to, you know, for release?
I mean, basically what happened was, you know,
Did that kind of hurt you too? Like knowing that he didn't listen to it for a whole year? Or
well,
not?
Yes and no, because I get it that it's like, it's your music, so
Right.
you don't want to hear how he's a producer. So it's not just like he's an artist. You know, he's going to hear it and hear what he would have done to it, maybe different. So he wouldn't have wanted to listen. But then when he hears it from so many people, he just listened, and he's like,
He probably
oh,
was
shit.
in, you know, in the midst of making an album, so he probably
that-
was on a different page.
That's also probably true.
Yeah.
But you also, I think, you know, if anyone's doing a like kind of a like a showcase on our work, I think we're afraid to like hate it and then hate ourselves. You could be like, we'll be like, why did they do this? Why did they do that? And then, you know, like, and it probably just kind of makes you depressed a little bit because, and you know, like that could be one thing that he was thinking, but. You know, because he's such a perfectionist.
You know what's a
you know
weird
what I
thing
mean?
about
Like, he's a
artists?
perfectionist.
Yeah.
You know, it's the weird thing about artists. Some artists
Yeah.
don't like to hear their own songs.
Right.
Or they hate the songs for
Yeah.
whatever reason. We don't know. They just like, oh, I hate that song. Or I hate the memory of what that is attached to. That
Yeah.
song's attached
I mean, that's happened sometimes. I know that for a fact. I think the other thing that happens is some artists are attached to the work in progress, and so when it
That could be
becomes
it, too.
finalized, it's
Yeah.
like too clean, or
Yeah.
something gets changed, and
Yeah.
they're like, ugh, and then
Yeah.
they move on to
But
the next.
I think also he knows if he took a listen, it would never get done. Maybe, you know, like, because he's such a. You hear about the stories of like
Yeah.
Chris
Not let-
Lighty and
yeah,
Low
not
End
let
Theory.
go. Right.
I mean, I've heard several albums worth of material at his house over the years that have never come out that is like better than anything that's out there now.
Shit.
So no, really, and yeah, like certain artists are artistes. You know, it's like Prince and Michael, and I put Q-Tip up in that category.
Definitely.
Andre 3000, like guys that are just like, you got to give them a lot of latitude because they're just.
So you know Q-Tip, right?
Who described it perfectly? It was like Tropical Quest is like our Beatles.
Yeah.
Right. And I was
right.
like, that's perfect.
Totally.
It sounds like a really like a crazy statement,
Like a stretch?
A stretch, but it's really not
it's really
at
not.
all.
At all.
They are our
No,
Beatles.
they're foundational in everything that follows.
Yeah.
And again, like, all I wanted was to live up to that. So, you know, because of that, the result is, man, like probably the thing I'm most proud of next to the Lauryn Hill in terms of mixtapes is the Q-Tip mixtape.
So wait, how did it get approved? It just went. He was just like, just run it.
I mean, it wasn't necessarily in terms of like approved. I submitted it. I mean, the things were coming in one by one. So I'm sending him the excursions and I'm sending him the things, and he's like, okay. And I know he knew about it, but like the final piece was kind of on me. What he offered to do was to do a freestyle, because it was when Barack Obama was being inaugurated. So we did the Q-Tip for President freestyle. And that for me was like, you know, the cherry on top is he's actually going to make something for this. Like, yo. So we put that out in November. And then we put the mixtape out in February, because November was the day that
The album, the
the
Renaissance.
album dropped.
Yeah.
So so we did that, and then I think I put the Excursion single out, and then we put the whole mixtape out afterwards. And this was also the first one I did digitally only.
So you had a couple exclusives on that.
Oh, I had it was all exclusive.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
That's
so, and there's a couple that never, you know, that like never made, that didn't make that, you know, chapter 2 kind of never really came out. So
Yeah.
there's still a couple that I have that I'm sitting on.
Really? Would you release a chapter 2?
Oh yeah, I mean, I did sort of. It was called the Lost Tapes.
Yeah.
Abstract Lost Tapes, and that was as close to a chapter 2. What I would love to do is find a way to, make that thing live forever. Like that's my mission now, is to figure out how to like really institutionalize some of these mixtapes.
We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
Because we were noticing Scratch Bastard working with Apple Music.
Yep.
And they've been releasing like Spin Bad mixtapes.
Yep.
Yeah. Shout out to Daddy Reef from over there with Apple.
At Platoon?
And Apple. He's over there at Apple, and he's actually curating all these mixtapes. DJ Hot Day. He's got all the guys, the Ron G's, all those guys are putting their mixtapes on Apple now.
Well,
they're actually
let me make this the first place to announce that I am going to be putting things up on Apple Music starting this
Make it
month.
happen. Podcast right here.
So what are some of the first mixtapes that are going to go out there?
Wow. So, I mean, what's going to happen to start is it's going to be a series of, it's basically under the live mixtape brand.
Right.
So, what we've done, sort of with artists live on stage with the live mixtape is one thing, but then during the pandemic, I did a series of things where I basically remade those live mixtapes as live sets for live stream. And so those are kind of eligible for this system.
Right.
So we're going to be putting those up starting this month with a mix called Revisionist History, which is basically like 2 hours of my remixes. And then after that, we have some other plans. I can't quite say, but there's a good possibility we're going to be premiering something next month in February on there. And I'm probably going to be putting one up every month this year on Apple Music. So
I just think like these best ofs, from the Nas, Big Daddy Kane, Lauryn Hill, Seal Smooth, the Isley Brothers was crazy. The Roots, Biggie, Lauryn Hill, Q-Tip, like all of those on Apple Music.
It's like catalog.
Like people need to hear those.
Yeah.
Like it's really it's tough, right? Because the 2000s was really like the 90s and 2000s. There was this mixtape culture, and then in the 2010s, it really just got phased out.
Well,
and
it's
then
like as the platforms changed.
Yeah, the platforms changed, but also like the youth and like how people saw mixtapes. It became like the mixtape. The identity of a mixtape became a rapper's demo.
Right.
And it lost the identity of a DJ's mixtape.
Yep.
And their ingenuity and their personality that comes along with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's led me to pursue different ways and forms that we can do those tapes on some of these platforms. But then also that's kind of what led to the live mixtape, which is let's do it again.
Let's talk about the live
stage.
mixtape because there's other things I want to get into. But in 2019, before the pandemic and COVID, you did a live mixtape. What was the concept behind that, and why did you start that?
Well, to be honest, the live mixtape goes back even further. It goes back to the Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival.
Yeah, because the concept is almost similar in certain ways to like DJ Cassidy's Pass the Mic that he's doing right now, but you had this concept a little bit before that, right?
Yes. The live mixtape has been a thing for some time, and honestly, shout out to Cassidy because I think it's important. Like the platforms that he's putting this thing on,
right,
will open doors for a lot of people. Yeah. I just was talking to Daytwan Thomas about this the other day because he was sort of behind getting that on the New Year's Eve special, and props for that, props for the Vegas residency, props for what he's doing.
Yeah,
what I've been doing, since we started Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival. It was at first who's backstage and how can we enhance my DJ set, and then by 2011 I was doing these with little special guests, and the one that really set it off was I had Brand Nubian, OC, and Black Thought, and basically when Black Thought took the stage for the live mixtape, I was like, yo. And there was someone in the audience that felt the same way, and they were the producer of a festival called the Manifesto Festival. And so they basically said, well, we want you to do the live mixtape, but only with Black Thought. And so we went up to Toronto, and in 2011, we recorded what is the first recording of the live mixtape at Dundas Square in Toronto. And it was an amazing
because he's like
show.
Hosting, and like he's kind of like on stage hosting the
entire
entire thing. Yeah, Black Thought.
It's basically me and him and me flipping through, so what the mixtape is about is basically what I would do in a DJ set, but now that people are showing up to perform it.
Right.
So with him, it became, well, you can play any one of these roles, so I'm just going to throw every beat at you and let you go crazy.
Yeah.
And that became the blueprint for the live mixtape version that now is at the Roots Picnic, where it's like Tariq and I and special guests, and then it's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. What happened in 2019 was me saying, okay, we're going to try to do this as a ticketed show. And I did it at Sony Hall, and it was basically top 5 MCs. So I had Pharoah Monch, The God Rakim, and Black Thought. And then, Smith & Wesson, Black Sheep, Moo Fresh as special surprise guests.
So how does this idea come to fruition? Who do you talk to? Who do you sell, who do you shop this to? Who's the person that you kind of run this, do I have something here? Can we sell this?
I mean, at that point in time, the live mixtape with me and Thought was already kind of a thing that was happening at the Roots Picnic. So it was, it was kind of I think it was the promoter from Sony Hall who had reached out to me about doing it.
Amazing.
And we did. The reason I haven't done another one of those is kind of, my vision for it has grown. So I would like to take it on the road and really do the scale of what we've been doing at the Roots Picnic or Lincoln Center. And I think this year, we're going to hopefully see that. But, the 2019 show was like a, proof of concept. Let's test it and see if it works. And we sold out Sony Hall, and it made this magical moment, like Stro Elliott. And then the other thing was, the revelation of it was, I'm going to bring a Pro Tools engineer and we're going to record this moment. And so not only are we going to make a moment, we're going to capture it and freeze it, and then we're going to make an album out of it. So I got everyone's permission, and we put that album out on all streaming services. So
you got it on video and audio?
The video, honestly, there was a couple problems, and we didn't get the whole show. We got clips of the show. I wish.
That's enough, though.
Yeah, so it was enough to promote it, but the audio was captured, and we put it out as an album.
So the audio and video, did you have to go out of pocket or did?
Yeah, out of pocket.
Really?
Every one of these. That's like I've been investing my money in capturing these the whole time.
Because it costs way more. Getting video, I don't know how many cameras it involves, probably 4 or 5 or less.
Well, it depends on how you do it, but when you're doing it right, it's probably 3 to 4.
3 to 4.
Yeah.
And then getting audio, getting cameramen, audio techs, right?
Yep.
So this is probably raising your budget even more, right?
Yeah, it becomes a thing of investing in yourself. You got to see the vision before it makes sense to other people. And I've been capturing these for years now. So, every one of these, the Dilla show with Black Thought, all of them have been captured.
Crazy.
The Lincoln Center shows, my dream is to put them out as a series of live albums.
Lincoln Center, just as a New Yorker, having being a DJ and having
hip hop at those little spaces.
Having a hip hop show with a DJ at Lincoln Center is fucking nuts.
It's crazy. I mean, the truth is that you got to give props to the Kennedy Center, because the Kennedy Center came in first and created the Hip Hop Culture Council.
Q-Tip is he's a part of that.
Q-Tip was the artistic director, and not only that, but I got a call to be a part of the first the inaugural class of that, and I thought it would be 100 people, and it was 18 people. So I'm on the Kennedy Center Hip Hop Culture Council, and one of the guys I met there is a guy named Xavier Jernigan, who's he's the voice of the DJ on Spotify. But basically, Lincoln Center approached him about some Hip Hop 50 programming, and he called me yo, I want you to bring your brand of this here and show them what it is. And that's what led to the Big Daddy Kane and Rakim at Lincoln Center last year, as well as the Rhapsody and Rakim. We helped put that together. And then this past year, we did a series of DJ nights, and then we did KRS-One and Slick Rick at Lincoln Center, which was mind-blowing for me.
Yeah, you did 2 Lincoln Center shows last year. It was April and August, right?
Well, no, one was August of 2023, and then August of 2024.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so on hip hop's birthday.
We've seen some great collaborations, even you mentioned Dave Chappelle from that movie, what he captured for that one night where he had everybody there at the block party.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you're kind of doing that shit on the regular now. What's up with that?
I mean, listen, that is, something I have, spoken to him about. But I think, again, it's sort of taking your inspiration and just trying to build on it. And so for me, I think what's missing are those moments, in hip hop, the things that we got to see because we were there. And so to me, it just makes sense to try to recreate those moments, to try to make moments. And in particular, I think this is where the level you're doing it at will determine the outcome. Because if we're going to make a moment, we have to have MCs that are worthy of the moment.
Yeah.
And so, now we're going after trying to get the top of the top, because if we're going to capture it and we're going to make a moment in history, let's really make a moment. I just want to say, and it hasn't happened overnight. Like there's been years and years of trying to prove this sort of to people as an idea, and only just now getting to the point where I feel like we're almost there.
It's a shame because when you launched in 2019 and then the pandemic happened, it literally just like, you had all this momentum and it just cut it, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to like remind people, like kind of like, no, we were on a roll. Like people wanted this.
Yeah.
You know, and you started, so it's funny, from 2019, you kept the live mixtape going through stream.
Yep.
And you started performing your mixtapes, your best of mixtapes. You started performing them live. And then also pushing the same narrative of live mixtape, and you were keeping it going, which was very smart as on a marketing sense, and I mean, as a hustler too, you know, just keeping it going.
Shout out to Jazzy Jeff, you know, for so many things. You know, I was talking about learning Ableton. Jeff is the one that taught me Ableton. Like I saw him at a show and I said, man, I've been trying to learn that program forever. And he's like, man, I'll teach it to you. Come down once a week for a month.
Really?
And I literally, I was like, don't offer me that unless you mean it. And I literally did that, and I learned Ableton from Jeff. And then, you know, Jeff, by way of the Playlist Retreat, opened up all the possibilities of production and what leads to, you know, story to tell. Wow. And then with the live mixtapes in the pandemic, it was Jeff that called me and said, listen, man, like you need to do what D-Nice is doing and what I'm doing. And I'm like, man, I don't want a camera aimed at me while I'm DJing. And he said, no, just trust me. And so he's like, look at how Ninth Wonder's doing it. And he's got the camera up in the corner. Look at how Green Lantern is doing it. Right. And I figured out a way to do it where I was like, okay, like it'll just be in the room and I'm just going to be here doing it. And I did it one time. And the response was so crazy. And, you know, you're not connected to anyone in this moment.
Right.
And so the feedback of, you know, the fire emojis and the whole thing, I was like, yo, this is incredible. And so that became my thing every week. Was I'm going to make new blends, I'm going to do a new live mixtape, and it got me through the pandemic, like in all the ways. And what's also crazy is that things started to grow for me during the pandemic. Like I had 12,000 followers at the beginning of the pandemic. Like now it's almost, hopefully we'll tip 100,000 this month.
Crazy.
And that's from that.
That's crazy.
So
really just from streaming like that.
From streaming, and then I think also, I mean, listen, we did the pinnacle of the live mixtapes was that during the pandemic in 2020, I got offered to do a live mixtape with Rakim as part of a thing for Adobe, the creative company, Photoshop,
for
and so forth.
Illustrator, yeah.
So they have a big conference, and they were doing it remotely in the pandemic, and they wanted to shoot a performance, a live mixtape performance. And so we shot this piece. It's on the rooftop. You can see it on my YouTube
I remember seeing that.
With God MC.
And that's when he's rhyming over like the Nas and the Mobb Deep joints?
No, that came later. So first we did the one on the rooftop, but what happened was, like, R.O.A.D was so impressed with how that came out that I got offered to do a New Year's Eve live stream by, Dubset, Stephen White. So Stephen White had approached me. He said, you know, we can get a billboard in Times Square and we can do this right. And I was like, wait, billboard in Times Square? Like, let's go. Like, sign me up. And so we ended up doing a live stream. And this is where, again, like all the series of things that leads to a thing where you got to earn your stripes with the God MC. Like, you can't just show up and DJ for Rakim. So it was like years of wanting to do something and seeing him and just the acknowledgement. And then the thing we did on the rooftop. And then we did that New Year's Eve one. And what was even crazier about that was that he had never done a live stream. So when we did it, the first take we did was like, it was cool. And then Big Daddy Kane in the beginning of the live stream of the pandemic had done a live stream where he killed it. And I asked him afterwards, and he was like, yo, man, it was hilarious. It was the camera, and then on the other side of the camera is my wife, my son, and my mother-in-law. And I just had to imagine 10,000 people. And I said to Rakim in the break, this is what Kane said to me. And what results is the performance that you see of him rocking over all those beats. Yeah. It's because he was performing like he was in a stadium or whatever in that little room in Queens. And that thing becomes this viral thing that goes crazy. Because like you never heard Rakim rhyming over,
anybody's stuff.
Paid in full over Cream. What? Yeah. So, and even to get him to try those things, that's years of like showing improving before he'll rap over another beat.
And the fact that, Rakim is so elusive, so to be able to get him out to be able to do these types of things, and especially in this moment.
Yeah, man.
You got the God. You know what I mean?
I mean, and that to me is like the pinnacle.
Right.
So, that night, that live stream that we recorded, that ends up, becoming the thing that fuels this growth on social media, because you never saw that.
Right.
And that's the first of those moments, that we're talking about.
Was that the first time you ever worked with him, Rakim?
I mean, I had done the Sony Hall show with him. So that's like a 15-minute set, and he got to see kind of what my vibe was. Then the Adobe thing was much more elaborate. And I mean, that thing was, you should watch it if you haven't seen it. It really came out amazing.
So you curated like kind of his performance?
Yeah, I definitely curated the performance. And then I sent him demos ahead of time. So like, this is what it'll sound like.
Wow.
I'm taking verses. I'm showing him what I want him to do with every one of them.
You're literally making a mixtape of the performance for him.
Yes.
So at this point, you're actually becoming more so a musical director.
Well,
I mean,
you've been a musical director probably towards the late 2000s. I was wondering, because you were getting approached by like video games like Activision to like put together soundtracks for like Tony Hawk's like Nintendo DS video game. You did another video game too.
DJ Hero.
DJ Hero, yeah. So like you were people like the work you did on these mixtapes. People were like, all right, this person knows how to curate. And he's probably a phenomenal music director, and that's probably when everyone started reaching out, right?
I mean, it started in small ways. My production game has evolved. The Playlist Retreat has evolved it, to a whole other level now. And then just being curious and like wanting to learn and always being a student. I feel like I've gotten better and better at all of these things. And so now I do feel like, I could call myself a musical director. What I did last year at the Grammys, Hip Hop 50 tribute, I'm not sure I knew I could do that before I did it.
How did that happen?
Man,
how the fuck did you end up getting involved with Hip Hop 50th anniversary performance tribute
at the Grammys?
Yeah, I mean, listen, shout out to the almighty Questlove, who has, really kind of graced me with some amazing opportunities. The Hamilton mixtape came to me by way of Questlove, many of these things, and this was one where he called me up kind of to make a demo, and it was sort of to make a mini live mixtape of like the native tongue piece. And here's the artist, and pick the songs and so forth. So I make a demo, and then he's like, all right, try this one. And then it kind of grows from there. And by the like a week later, I've made 6 or 7 of these demos, and I'm like, what is this? And he tells me that that's what it's for, is this CBS Grammys special that they're going to do, this 2-hour special.
So basically your demos are like proof of concept, so he can play him and actually have the person come on and perform.
Well, the proof of concept to the executives and also to pitch to the artist. So I'm constantly changing every day. It's like, okay, Lil Wayne can't do it. Try this one, and that's how that goes for like a month.
You're like a storyboard artist.
Yes,
sort of like an audio storyboard artist. But what gets crazy is that a week before they're like, okay, can you make the show demo, the show dubs as well? And I was like, yeah, of course, that's what I do. So I basically Serato stem out everything and set it up so that I can go in there. It's all locked to grid, and I can do anything. I have infinite, like flexibility. And basically, they never seen anything like that. So when I got in there, it's like normally the director has a problem with the time on an artist show. It's like, okay, talk to the producer, talk to the manager, I'm like, wait, what's the issue? You need like half a chorus cut off DJ Quick. Where's DJ Quick? And just go talk to DJ Quick.
Let him know.
And just resolve the issue before it's an issue. And that's, again, it's like all this from doing this for many, many years. So I felt like I was uniquely qualified to walk in there and do it. And it ended up being incredible. I mean, like I got a credit as the music producer for that show.
Crazy.
2-hour special. And and I think that also opened up in my mind that, while we may not be able to take the mixtapes in their previous form out into the world in the way that I would like, we can apply that same idea to something like that and blow it wide open. Like they never saw anything like that.
I feel like that was, I could be wrong, but I had the impression that it was like super last minute. Like, was it? I feel like everybody last year was like super last minute on all the 50th anniversary hip hop shit. Like it was almost like everyone forgot, and everyone was like scrambling at the last minute to like get involved. And it like I'm just kind of wondering, like, because even there was all these rumors about like how chaotic that Grammys performance was.
Well, I think the Grammys one that happened at the Grammys, which is the 15-minute one, that's the one that Questlove did, and I mean, did, with the Roots. And I think that one was an amazing feat. When I saw it, I was blown away. And then you hear the people complaining about this person not being there and that. But coming to find the reality of that, it's just like who's available and who's down.
Yeah.
And, who wants to make a moment. And so by the time you get back around later, I don't even know that they knew that they wanted to do it again. In fact, after the first one he did, he was like, I'm never doing that again. And then they called him up to do it again as a full thing. And I think that's where it leads to me, because I'm like, oh man, like, yes, like I definitely want to do that. Let's go. And so, again, didn't know what
it was super rushed,
into.
right? You had to
It was all inside of like 3-4 weeks, the whole thing.
That's a lot of work, a lot of moving parts.
A lot of moving parts, but again, like uniquely prepared by years of DJing and production and curating and talking to artists and all these things. Sometimes I was watching the piece you were posted about mental health on IG.
And with DJ Balance.
Yeah, it was a guy Balance talking about how like kind of riding out these periods where you don't get any feedback. Yeah. Like many of these things I'm making off in a corner and no one knows about it. And maybe they'll find out about it. But like, to be honest, like more of them, they don't ever come out.
Yeah.
And so I think that also steels you to the reality of like, not everything is going to go, but you got to give it, a shot anyway. Right. And it's like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, thing. And so,
because not every mixtape is going to be the Lauryn Hill mixtape. Not every mixtape is going to be the Q-Tip. Not every live event or collab is going to be like the Grammys or Rakim or Lincoln Center.
Or there'll be huge periods of time between those things where you're like, am I ever going to be able to do that again? Right. Like, will they move on to the next dude, or whatever? Will they not understand the subtle parts, like we do? And that's like a thing that I definitely related to when I was listening to that, because man, there's so many times where I'm doing this thing off in a corner and don't know if it's going to turn into a thing. And again, most of them don't. So it's easy to sit here and talk about like all the crazy stuff that's happened. But the truth is, like, over many, many years of being consistent and not doing it for any reason other than I love it and I want to do it.
But that's so important, right?
That's the most important.
That's what makes it worth it when it doesn't come to fruition, because you love it and you put your 100% in, and you're like, well, that project didn't end up coming out or nothing ended up coming bad. But then something comes on your table and you got to put 100% again.
Yep.
You can't be like, well, what if this doesn't come out? I'm not going to put as much effort in it, right?
Well, not everything happens in the time you want it to happen.
Right.
It also informs your, the process for the next time.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Because you went through that and you did that. It gives you kind of perspective on how to approach the next project.
Totally. But also, the fact that, it may be a stretch before there, that next thing comes along, and what are you doing to get better in the meantime? There's a record I have for Storyteller Chapter 3 with Marlon Craft, and it's basically about this, that like, if it takes you longer, then maybe it's supposed to take longer.
Right.
And that's been my experience. Like, many of these things didn't happen in the time I wanted them to. Some of them, like the Tupac mixtape, it crashed and burned when the Broadway play crashed. It never came out. The Mary J. Blige mixtape was going to be her greatest hits. And then they were like, it'll cost $2 million to clear the samples. And then they canned it, and it never happened. So some of these things have been, that's like a year of work.
Right.
And it's just like, nope. But, you never know what form a thing is going to take. And, you never know how long it's going to take to evolve and turn into that. And you have to kind of keep going towards that idea, even if you don't see where you're going to get to it. And that is scary.
How do you deal with it?
Man, it's a roller coaster, to be honest.
When those things happen and you devote a year to something and it doesn't go out, like, where does your mind go, and where does your head go? And then how do you get out of it,
I mean, to be honest, I've evolved a lot on it. It used to frustrate me immensely. Right. I think you need to experience what it's like to have a thing not happen and then have it come back around and happen at a moment where it's supposed to happen. And you see how the alignment added to it.
Full circle.
Totally. And also that, like, everything in its own time. Yeah. So, to do this in that way, like Jeff talks about die empty and like just give all your stuff out. Like I believe that to a certain extent, but I also believe like you can't control that. Like, some things will happen in their own time, and you just got to roll with it. So I don't know. I mean, again, that's not the most eloquent answer. No. But it's a reality of doing this.
It is. But I'm also wondering, maybe like throughout your career, what was maybe the hardest era or time?
Sheesh. Every era.
Really?
Yeah, man. I mean, like, again, even this era, this is probably the hardest era. And it's because you grow up and, you know, like you evolve and, you know, you have kids and, you know, you're trying to now balance a whole bunch of stuff and it's not the same as it once was. And the stakes are higher. That's a real thing. Like Jeff said that to me the other day, that when you're 18 and you're out here rolling and doing it,
right,
you know, it's like risk. Awesome. Let's go. You know, if you're, you know, older and you got kids and, you know, the risk part is like, you got to weigh that a little differently. And so I think it's still difficult. You know, it's for me, even with all the things I've done, there's a movie director that I met when I was early in my career, a guy named Gary Ross. He's a writer. And this guy's, you know, Seabiscuit and massive, you know, Oscar-winning movies. And he once said to me, being an artist, every single time, no matter how big a success, every single time it's over, you're going to be terrified at will you ever get to make something like that again. And that's, man, that is real.
Right.
Like now, Jay, how do you finish it? Like, because, you know, sometimes we get like a thing where we're in love with a project and we're working on it. How do you let it go? How do you say, okay, this is done?
I mean, I think that's just a feeling. Like, to me, honest, the moment that happens is when there's nothing else that I want to change. Like, I'm a crazy perfectionist. I'll be in there tweaking until the end of time. When I can just close my eyes, and or when the thing makes me dance from front to back, then it's done. And then don't fuck with it.
Yeah. That's a great feeling.
Yeah.
You win.
I had that earlier today. I made something last night, crazy intense, that had to be done by today, and I was just dancing around in my studio like, I think I got some. But that's it. That's how you know it's a feeling, man. It's like, I don't know. I think otherwise you'll drive yourself crazy.
All right, so that's personal. That's something that you're doing. How does it work with you're working on somebody else? Like, you're doing the Hamilton thing. How does that, it's somebody else's project and you're doing something for them. How do you kind of let it go?
So I haven't heard this Hamilton mixtape. I'm sorry. You know, I listen to all your shit, but you got so much shit. Like, I can't.
That's a little different than your average.
It is different.
Yeah.
So, like, how did you put that together? Like, what was the concept? Because I didn't hear it.
I mean, basically, it's sort of, you know, I was approached by Riggs Morales.
Riggs? Oh, shit.
Yeah, early on, before Hamilton was really Hamilton. And it was like, J.Period, can you make a mixtape to promote this little thing we're doing over here? And it was before it blew up. And I made...
Really?
Yeah. And I made, I took the cast recording and I made a version of 10 Dual Commandments, which is in there with Biggie 10 Crack Commandments. And
with the beat.
Yeah, with the beat, and tuned them so that they worked. And that was the first demo of the Hamilton mixtape. But after I sent that, Hamilton blows up and becomes this massive thing, which everyone loves. So by then they're like, okay, well, we're going to go to Alicia Keys to do this song, and we're going to go to Usher, and we're going to go to all these people to remake songs from the play. But they're going to be pop versions or like R&B, soul, or hip hop versions.
Wow.
And so the idea of the mixtape, you know, the Roots had done the cast recording album, and so I think they went back to the Roots to do the mixtape, and that's where Amir called me in to Electric Lady and was like, listen, I got a project for you, and he hands me his phone, and on FaceTime is Lin-Manuel Miranda, and this is at Electric Lady.
Yeah.
And you know, I walk over to the corner, and I sit down and I'm talking to him, and he's like, all right, so listen, I'm going to send you the songs. These are the versions we have. The record label wants to put it like, you know, most famous artist first, second most famous artist second, and just make it like that.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to do it like in the storyline of the play.
Yeah.
How would you like, you know, like, so show me what you would do. And so I sit down, I start trying to like describe it, and I'm like, this is never going to work. And so I literally sat with headphones on in the corner at Electric Lady for like the next 8 hours, and I made the demo of what I wanted it to be, and it just was basically like a mixtape. So, you know, remember the source, like put your hottest cut first.
Yeah.
So like, you know, we're starting off with a banger. It's like a, you know, cold open of a movie. Like, we're going to hit you in the head, and then it, you know, kind of settles in. And I basically sent this to Lynn and sent it to Riggs. And by the following day, they were like, okay, new plan. This is the plan.
Wow.
And like that, and it just became the plan. And again, it's just like being creative, and how would you want to hear this? To me, that's more like a fan's instinct than anything. It's like, if I'm listening to this, like, what's the illest way that you could put it? And so, you know, it's just, it starts with that blueprint, and then it evolves and grows, and then it becomes a Billboard #1 album in its opening week, bro.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. And my first, you know, gold record, like, just craziness.
I have a question, all right?
Okay.
Like, I have a friend of mine. celebrities call him, famous artists call him, and he jumps and he works with them. And there's no talk of like how much he's going to get paid. There's no talk of like what are the royalties. There's nothing. But he's always there for the artist. He's always there for the celebrity. He's always there, for any musician.
Okay.
And I always ask him, like, how do you figure out what your compensation is? And where do you have that discussion? Because it's like when you're sitting across from like your hero or a person you respect, we're such big fans and we're such lovers of their work and the culture. We would do it for free, but we can't, right?
For sure.
So how do you have that discussion? Like, how do you initiate that? And then when is the right time to do it? Like you can't really do it towards the end of the project.
Right, because you're getting hooked up from people. Like the people are hooking you up. Like, I want you to do this.
Yeah.
But are they saying, yo, this is going to be kind of dope for you to...
But it's also like, like if Questlove hits me up, they're like, can you work on this? And I'm busy. I have to like jump. I have to be like, you know what, Quest, I got you. Let me take care of it. I can't even be like, well, how much is it? Because it's kind of like, well, it becomes a roadblock in the creative process. So you kind of have to like roll with the sense of urgency that Questlove has, that, his clients or whoever he's collabing with has. And then when do you bring up the compensation and how do you know how much to get compensated? It's...
Man, I mean, to be honest, I think it's...
And do you deal with it? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, I have a manager who deals with it. I think that is generally the best way to do this. I think that, the truth is that I would do it for free, but it's like, right. I got a family, so I can't do it for free,
right.
So, there's that reality. And I think that the truth of it is the one thing that I can say just, in terms of advice on this is don't ever do it for the money. If you're doing it for the money, you already fucked up.
Right.
Like that's not the motivation. Like there's no soul in that. So you got to be doing it for another reason. And then you have to understand context, like whatever the context of the thing is, either you understand it or you're going to get got. You know what I mean? And that just comes from seeing things. But also, I don't have those conversations with the artist. That's literally never happened because that's not the kind of conversation I'm trying to have with cats, nor do I really care. Right. Like what I care is, do you identify that I can do the job? And can I do the job to the best of my ability and blow this shit out of the water? That's literally 100% of my motivation. I think behind that, there has to be a person coming in saying, well, yeah, but if you want to release it and you want his sign off, then, here's the da 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 da. And so, I think that there's no clear answer. There's no
every situation is different.
I think the truth is that don't ever do it for the money. Like it's like that.
Right.
That will upset everyone in your life.
All right. But
that's the truth.
Let me build a scenario for you. Okay.
Okay.
I call you up and I say, look, I'm doing something for a movie. Can you come in and help me like curate the soundtrack and like put it together that matches the theme of the movie and everything? You go in and you put in weeks worth of time into this. We're working it out. It's in the middle of being developed. The client's happy with it. The studio's happy with it. Are you talking with your manager and saying like, I'm working on this, and then are they asking you questions? Your manager like, well, what's the budget? Da 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 da. Like, how much communication is behind it?
Well, I think the truth is that in a case like that, the manager's involved from jump. And it's always, like what are the parameters of this project? Okay. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? What do you see my role in it? And, what's, to whatever extent, what's it worth to you is not really the question, but on some level, like that's the question.
So there's been certain instances where you've been called on and your manager's like, I don't want you to do this.
Well, again, I that's not my motivation. So like, listen.
So if you want to do it, you'll tell the manager, just figure it out. Let me just do it.
If I want to do it, I'm going to do it regardless of what, because that's the whole point is to contribute in those ways. I think, the flip side of how do you make a living at it is an endlessly kind of frustrating maze. You know what I'm saying? It really is because
I'm so curious. Like if you're doing all this work,
I mean, listen. Sometimes you get shorted. Sometimes you're not going to get paid what you feel you were worth or what your contribution was worth. Sometimes you get leveraged out of certain things because of who you are and who they are and so forth. And you have to judge each of those things accordingly.
Right.
To me, I always look at what I'm getting. You know, like it's never about what I'm not getting. It's like, well, look at what I'm getting. Like I just got a business card forever. You know, like I literally, it's so funny, but like I did that whole Rakim show I did for that Times Square billboard. I was like, I need that. Like I need that forever. I want to have that. And you know, whatever, that's silly, but also it's kind of like there's tremendous value in that as establishing like the shit you are doing is Times Square billboard level shit. You know, that never goes away ever. So to me, value is what you're asking for. You know, like where's the value? Is it in promoting my name? Are you going to put me on the thing? Am I going to be on stage for the thing? Like what are we talking about? And I think trying to feel that out is just, that's the riddle of how to make a living doing this. You know, like sometimes you're going to take a L on the money. Yeah. But
the opportunity
always. Yeah. And then the other secret sauce is that nobody that's giving you any opportunity that's worth taking is thinking about the money. They're not thinking about the money. They're just trying to knock the shit out of the park. So that should be your mentality. If you're in the room, you're trying to knock the shit out of the park, and you can figure out where it lands later.
Are we all trying to make greatness, or are you here for a check, you know?
I mean, and the truth is that anybody that's asking about the money is there for a check, that's not who you want to be rocking with. Because their motivation is...
Well, no one wants to work with that person anyway.
Well, no, because their motivation is in the wrong place. Right. Like if you're not... These are things that require spirit and soul. It's like if you're not bringing all of that to the table, meh.
Right.
So I don't know if that answers the question.
That's a great lesson.
I mean, it's difficult too. It's like, you know, I can't even, like, if I was even to ask you in the 15, 20 years that you've been doing this, is there a fixed formula on you know,
on what to charge?
On what to charge, and there isn't, right? There never is.
No fixed formula.
And it's one of those things where someone's going to tell you, like, yo, I can't give you your rate for this, or I can't compensate you as much for this, but on the next one, when we have a big budget,
and then you have people that aren't familiar with him, so they're coming into it not knowing exactly where his skill level is at or what he's about. Yeah. So you're kind of like underplaying yourself because they don't know, and then you have to show them. Yeah. And then on the next one, of course, you're gonna get blown out the wind. You know.
And you can't be that type of motherfucker to tell somebody like, yo, but you pay me shit the last one. I ain't fucking with you no more. You have to kind of keep an even level and see the big picture.
Yeah, and understand the context, man. Right. Context is key to everything. You know, like,
and you gotta hope, like, yo, this person's gonna take care of me the next time. You know.
Well, even that is a lesson, because if they don't, okay, I see you.
So sometimes you'll let it happen.
Sometimes I get paid in a lesson.
Yeah.
There you know, and I'll take that because like that's money earned forever.
But then the work is still there though. You still have the work.
Yeah, the work is there, and or that's not someone that you really want to rock with, to whatever extent. But
you got to get burned a couple times to actually realize it. Sometimes.
I would say it differently. I've never been burned. You just have to see where the value is. And you got to react. We got to like change your perspective to where the value is, right? And think about it like that. Because the truth is that many of the things that I have gotten paid the least for, that you would do like, damn, you only got that much. But it's like there was some context and parameters or whatever. You came into the deal late and such. But what did that thing set up? What did it make possible? Right. And if you're going into it like, what's in it for me? You never. This is the old secret of going to Echo or any of these spots. I would never go up there to get clothes. I would go up there to bring mixtapes. But guess what? What happens when I'm there giving them a mixtape? They're going to give me some clothes. So, it's just like that thing of like not being in it for yourself. It's a very important thing,
It's true. Like, setting up a relationship with somebody for 10 plus years and having them trust you for 10 plus years. And then for them to approach you after 10 years to be like, I have this big project and I think you're perfect for it.
And then you add decades of
that. It's just, I really feel like it's just a tough position to be in. But I think that's great the way you said it's really on your perspective on what are you gaining out of this? What are you learning out of this? Is this an experience that you're going to remember and treasure,
Also in the same vein as following the love that you have is take yourself back to, DJ Khalil was just saying this to me the other day, like take yourself back to the place where you were when you started and imagine just the idea of even getting to work with these people and how mind-blowing that would be.
That's crazy.
And like, you did that, you've done that. So
How did you link up with Questlove? You're like his go-to, it sounds like.
I would say one of his go-tos, and happy, I said to him, I'll happily be Questlove understudy, just like I'll be Jeff understudy forever, like what could be better than that? But I think it started with the Roots mixtape, which was where I was hired by the label to do that, and basically trying to get Tariq to perform those freestyles was like getting water from a rock. They had been on tour. He was exhausted. Amir first was impressed that I even got Tariq to rap that many things for the mixtape. And then the way that I tweaked it and made the mixtape, he was impressed with. But it was the Biggie, the March 9th remixes that he heard. And he was like, yo, like this shit is crazy, da, da, da. And it's just been little by little over time of just, being there, again, happy to be there. So like, if I'm rocking with Tariq and Amir's got something like, da da da, and then things would happen like that often. But I think the other factor is, if you can earn the respect of Black Thought, then you have demonstrated, that you are worthy of that respect.
Yeah.
And man, that goes forever. That goes with Amir. That goes with every rapper that steps on that Roots picnic stage. Like the level of those performances, whether the behind the scenes on the trailer bus with Common and everybody or on stage.
That video is crazy.
It's nuts. But like, let me tell you, the secret sauce of that is everybody comes in and Tariq has written 8 new original raps for the show.
Alien.
And he starts spitting them.
He's an alien. He remembers all the shit.
And everyone looks at him like, oh, we're rapping.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then you see the thing go to that level.
Right.
So, like you can't, take for granted the Black Thought factor in all of this, because his bar of perfection is so high. The live mixtape only exists because working with him, I had to learn how to create a thing that could have structure but be flexible, because he's liable to go spit 75 bars and you got to keep up. And so that also really helped shape that whole thing and got me ready to just be ready for anything.
Yeah.
If you can rock with him, you can do it.
You're like officially a Philly head, right? You're kind of like...
I'm honorary Roots
Philly
family.
Yeah. You're like
I like to think of myself as
but
honorary
even with Jazzy
native
Jeff,
tongue.
Jazzy Jeff is like mentoring you.
Yeah.
What do you, how does that happen where Jazzy Jeff is teaching you Ableton and he's calling you, telling you, you got to start live streaming? Like what? I mean, have you ever met an individual like Jeff?
No, Jeff is one of one. Jeff is one of a billion.
He's just like this very open, like he's just ready to give.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, to be honest, Jeff is like the living expression of loving something so much that you just want to give to it. And I think, I'm one of many people that Jeff mentors. The Playlist Retreat is ultimately like all the people that, well, not all. There's obviously legends on his level, but just, everyone looks to Jeff as Professor Xavier. So for me, that started before the Ableton thing. I think the Ableton thing made it official because I was like, yo, you're going to let me come to your house? Like, word? And so I went down there and did that. And also, it turned out that he wanted to know how I made, the March 9th mixtapes. Like, he wanted to get inside of my head and he wanted to sort of talk to me as well.
Because you were like doing stems before stems existed, right?
Kind of. And I mean, listen, G Brown, again, I shout him out because
G Brown,
G Brown had the illest collection of acapellas, man. I don't know how he did it. And he was like friends with studio engineers or something, but he always had stuff. So the March 9th mixtapes were basically G Brown feeding me acapellas and me being like, oh, word, and just going to town. And that's how it started. But man, like I think the thing about Jeff, just to go back to that part, is Jeff is so generous, really because he sees his vision is so long that he's trying to ensure the survival of the right elements of this.
Right.
And so like he's seeing past you, like he's seeing where you fit into his larger vision.
It's like a responsibility he has.
Yeah, but again, who but him could play that role?
He's almost like Loki with the multiverse. He sees where you fit into the pieces of
the big story,
this storyline.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've got to make sure, J.Period or this other DJ or this producer, I got to make sure they stay on the right path. And that, and then if it takes me, having them come to my crib and teaching them Ableton or like having a call with them, he just wants to make sure that you keep giving and, you know, contributing, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what you find with the people that attend the Playlist Retreat. They're all people like that, like me. They all want to just, they love it.
Yeah, there's this unconditional nurturing. And there's this trust that, like, no, this person cares this much, and, you know, if they care that much, I'm willing to give even more. Right?
Yeah, and you know, Jeff has made the world possible for me. I mean, among many other people, but you know, so many of these things. So shout out to Jazzy Jeff, like, you know, eternal gratitude for that. But, you know, I still sometimes have to pinch myself that I even get to talk to these guys, you know.
I mean, you talk to a bunch of motherfuckers like you're always hanging around with Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle hosted your I Got a Story to Tell, both of those albums.
Yep. And that also,
that's insane.
It's completely insane. But you know, funny story. The night before the Hamilton mixtape came out, or actually the night before it was named Billboard #1 album, I'm in LA and J.Period is like, yo, come kick it. I'm going to see Dave. And I don't know which Dave he's talking about, but I go to see him and it turns out it's Dave Chappelle. And so J.Period from Tribe introduces me to Dave, and when I say my name, the first thing he says is, yo, you did that Q-Tip mixtape. And I was like, motherfucker. And he was like, I love that mixtape. Right. I listen to it all the time, da-da-da-da. He's like, you got your DJ stuff? I was like, yeah. He's like, you're DJing the after party.
Crazy.
I was like, well, okay. So then I DJ the after party. Shout out to DJ Trauma, who's his tour DJ, for like sliding me a couple records, you know.
I need to get Trauma on the podcast.
I love Trauma. Yeah. I love Trauma.
He's probably in Africa somewhere.
He is. He's in Ghana. He just got his fucking citizenship for Ghana. Like, what the cheese? Like, come on, man. So
shout out to Trauma.
Yeah. So you know, that night, you know, Dave gives me his number and he's like, you know, call me anytime. And of course you don't call anytime, but you know, I pitched him an idea that night, which is like a comedy mixtape. And he hits me the next day. He's like, yo, I still like that idea.
Yeah.
And so it just sort of started like that. And then when I was working on my album, it took me a while again to get the guts to ask him, but I see him in person. I'm like, yo, would you be the narrator of my album? He's like, I'll do it. You know, just like says it right then. But again, like a year goes by, you know, and nothing happens. It was during the pandemic. Again, shout out to Questlove. But you know, a friend of mine who was Lauryn Hill's former assistant, named Mikkel, she calls me and she's like, listen, Dave is here in Yellow Springs. He's going to be here. Now's your shot. Come and get the thing. And I'm like, yo, it's a pandemic. No. And she's like, here, talk to Amir. And Amir gets on the phone and he's like, yo, it's safe. There's kids here. He's got a PCR testing machine. Have I ever steered you wrong? And I was like, well, I guess that settles it. And so I literally went to my wife and I was like, yo, like, I need you to say yes to something before I ask you the question. And she said yes. And I'm like, I need you to drive with me to Yellow Springs, Ohio, like this weekend. It's a 9-hour drive. And so I literally put the kids in the back of the car, left at 2 a.m. so they would sleep the first like 6 hours, and drove to fucking Yellow Springs, Ohio. And this man honored his promise.
Wow.
And he did it. And that right there, again, it was the seed, you know, because again, I'm going there to get my thing, but he's like, yo, I'm working on this thing called the Midnight Miracle, and I have an idea for you. And so
that's his podcast.
Yeah. And you know, man, oh man, there was a whole season's worth of demos that I made, which is basically all the conversations about hip hop I took and flipped and made mixtape form of the podcast. And it's still, I'm not sure what will happen with it. But again, one of these things that, you know, maybe in time.
That's some ill content right there.
For sure. And that was in his mind, it was like, okay, I want to pick your brain about this thing. And that's where we kind of connected. And, you know, again, like, I don't know, you know, whether it's the fact that I grew up in LA, and so obviously I was exposed to famous people as a kid, and I saw also the way that like it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. So like I don't necessarily hold people up just for being famous. Like if they do something that I'm in awe of, that's different.
Yeah.
But so I think that more often than not, if you treat people like regular people, they will treat you like regular people. And so that's like been my experience, whether it's, you know, after however many years, Miss Lauryn Hill called me and asked me to DJ her 40th birthday party a couple years ago. And again, like you talk about leaving an impression. So, you know, these things have all exceeded my expectation and understanding. And I just feel like the only formula that I've found that I can point to definitively is pour all your fucking love into it and try your best.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then that way, whatever the outcome is, cool, you tried your best. So
it's so interesting you bring up like being around like famous people or like, you know, musicians or legends and talking to them and like they're regular people.
I mean, I think again it goes back to you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
And that's just never been my mentality. I think part of that is just growing up in LA. Like it's not intimidating in that same way. Like you see people as people.
Yeah.
And that's not true for everybody. That's just my experience.
Uh-huh.
But I think that has helped me a lot. And you know, I think also like, you know, dreaming big is not something you can do on your own. Like you got to have other people to help make the dream real. Mm-hmm. And I just saw that from early on with the mixtapes. Like I was a nobody, but you know, oh, that kid that did that Nas mixtape and then the Kane, and then you get associated with these artists, and then it's like, oh, J.Period, can you get, you know, Lauryn Hill to come to do our show? I'm like, well, no, but like the fact that you're asking me that tells me something.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's been that. And man, I mean, you know, the next phase of this, who knows where we can take it? You know,
so what's next?
Man, well, I mean, Story to Tell Chapter 3 is going to be coming out this year.
Yeah.
There's an incredible, and I've told this story with Wyclef. Like I wrote a letter as a kid and like literally mailed it in to the Fugees, care of Columbia Records, and ended up, you know, connecting with Wyclef. So Chapter 3 will conclude that story. I told it a couple years ago on Twitter. It's a pretty amazing story.
Is there a brief summary of the story?
Yeah,
like, I didn't see this Twitter post.
All right, so you know the Wyclef story, again, another one of these crazy shoot your shot stories. But you know, when I was a sophomore in college, there's a lyric off a Fugees record on Vocab, and I wrote a letter. I mean, there's no short way to tell this story, but basically, there's a lyric on Vocab that made me write a letter, and I didn't have any way to reach the Fugees, so I literally sent it to the Fugees, care of Columbia Records, like main address on the back of the record. And my roommate at the time was like, "Man, what are you doing? Like, they're never gonna, you know, this is like physical letter,
right?
There's no internet stuff." So
it's like he's fan mail, right?
Yeah, it was fan mail basically. He's like, "You might as well put your phone number." I'm like, "All right, motherfucker, I'm gonna put my phone number." And I send this letter off, and I go to, you know, class or whatever, forget about it. And a week later, I get back, and he hands me a note, and it says Fugees and a phone number. I'm like, "Dude, stop fucking with me." He's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Wait, you don't know what this is?" He's like, "Nah." I was like, "Oh my God." I call the number back, and it's Proswell's answering machine. And I leave a message, and I go back to class. I'm like, "What the fuck?"
What consisted of the letter? Like, what made you write the letter?
Well, this is where there's no short version of the story, but basically,
what was the line?
There's a line on Vocab where he says, "See, I'm known for the crew, like a Jew is a Jew, like Apollo got the boo, like the Miller got the brew." And I was like, "Well, what does that mean?" I'm Jewish, you know. I'm like, "What does that mean?" So I write this letter about this, and so you know what ends up happening is I get back from class, and there's a voicemail on my machine. It's like, "Yeah, this is Wyclef. Here's my number. Call me back." And I call him back, and to my amazement, he answers the phone, and he's like driving from Philadelphia, you know, to New York, and he's got 45 minutes to talk to me.
Yeah.
And again, this is 95, 96. This is like predates everything. It's just like you send it off, you know, into the dark.
Yeah.
And then the shit actually comes back. And it turns out that he's basically like, I grew up in Crown Heights. Some of my best friends were Jewish. Like the way the black kids would be like, "What's up, black?" The Jewish kids would be like, "What's up, Jew?" He's like, "My father was a minister. You know, I was taught to be before I was a black man, I'm a human being." And he tells me all this stuff. And so, you know, when the score comes out, I'm overseas, and I come back, and it's Fujilan, How Many Mics is the first single. Mm-hmm. And when I listen to it, he says, "On my day off with David Sonnenberg, I'll play golf, run through Crown Heights, screaming out, Mazel Tov. Yeah. Problem with no man before black, I'm first human. Appetite to write like Frederick Douglass with his slave hand." And I'm like, "Oh, that's so funny. That's what he was talking about."
Basically, your conversation on the phone. Yeah. Right.
So I see the Fugees are coming to LA. I'm leaving town, but I send my sister. It's at the House of Blues, and I'm like, "Listen, sometimes before the show, the artist would be in the dining room. Like, just if you can go up to Wyclef, if you see him, just ask him if that's what this was about." So she actually does this, and he's actually there, sitting in the dining room. And she goes up to him, and she's like, "Listen, this is going to sound crazy. My little brother, he went to Stanford. He wrote you a letter." He's like, "Oh, the kid about the Jewish thing." She's like, "Wait, you know what I'm talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, I figured he would like that line I put on the new album for him." So that line on the album is actually a shout out to me. And so, you know, this then turns into a thing where I'm like, "Oh, I got to meet Wyclef," but it never happens. Like my friend runs into him, he gives him a backstage pass to give to me, all this stuff. But years later, as J.Period now, and I've done the Lauryn Hill mixtape, I get brought back into the studio with Wyclef.
So crazy.
And I'm like too scared to tell him the story because I don't want to be like the scrub.
Right.
And so I don't. But then again, you know, at the Roots Grammy Jam 2019, I run into him and I finally get the courage and I tell him this. And he's like,
God.
yo, that was you? Like, I'll never forget that, the whole thing.
Like 25 years later.
Like years later. So I'm like, listen, is there any chance that you would be down to tell that story for my album? It's called Story to Tell. He's like, oh yeah, of course. Wow. Trade numbers. And while I'm thinking of how to structure this, I'm like, yo, I have this record. I wonder if I can get him to do it in a song. So I basically send him this beat, and Andrew Day is on the hook. It's like it's really incredible ill joint I did with DJ Khalil, and he writes me back and he's like, I love it, I'll do it.
Wow.
And I'm like, what the so he's like, give me a month. So, you know, 1 month, 2 months, 6 months goes by, nothing. And finally I get an email from his engineer and it's like, it'll be in your inbox today. And he sent it to me. And it's
That's
like
crazy.
And like that shit is real. So the conclusion to the story is that I have a record with Wyclef that is coming out on Story to Tell Chapter 3.
Wow.
Which is gonna be nutso.
Your whole life is
serendipity. It's almost like happenstance. It just happens and just
Kismet or you know, aligning of the stars. I don't know what it is. It's, you know, Forrest Gump type of stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know.
You know, if the love and the intention is there and you shoot your shot, you know, something will happen. It may not happen now, but it could happen 20, 25 years later. That's crazy.
That has been my experience.
Yeah.
And again, it does sound crazy.
Questlove on R.O.A.D podcast.
What do you say?
That's, we're gonna put it out there. We're gonna put it out there. We're gonna put it out there.
Yeah.
Questlove on R.O.A.D.
Questlove on R.O.A.D podcast. Like I said,
are you shooting your shot?
Shoot my shot.
You shoot your shot? All right, bet.
Wait. You got to tell the story that you told us before we started recording about Questlove and Goldie.
Oh man, well the story which was amazing is when I told him that I was coming here today because I'm on my way to the studio with him. After I leave here, he's like, man, not only does he listen, he's like voraciously to your YouTube channel and he listens to all the podcasts.
I would have never thought that Questlove.
I mean, look, he's a music nerd, so it's not totally surprising, and you guys know your stuff. So what he said though was that he felt like an imposter because he never did his New York tour of duty opening up for DJ Goldfinger, which, you know,
why would he open it up for me?
Bro, at one point in time you were everywhere, so it was like your path to success would lead you to opening up for Goldfinger in some place or another. So I opened up for Goldfinger a couple times.
Okay.
So
I've never opened up for you. Well, I did open up for you, I think.
You did?
I think
It's
it was I think it was a MoMA birthday. Yeah.
Okay.
MoMA birthday.
Yeah. But I still got my stripes.
Word. So we'll see if we can get Questlove on the podcast.
We got to get him on the podcast.
Yeah. Word up.
Yo, Jay, I know you got to go. Yeah. But before you leave, I got to get you to do our Road 10. Okay. So like the Road 10 is basically like, you know, the end of the actor studio when he asks those 10 questions.
All right.
These are our 10 questions.
Oh man.
You know,
and got to put my thinking cap on.
Yeah. First question, what's your favorite city to DJ in?
I mean, you can't beat New York for DJing, I got to say.
I thought you were going to say Philly. It's fucking Philly.
Yeah,
I mean, Philly with the Roots picnic, I got to say, may have taken over because doing those shows in front of that crowd is just incredible.
Crazy. And then what's a city that maybe you kind of like, you never connected with or you kind of struggled with?
Vegas. Always wanted to go out and rock in Vegas and never really happened. Who knows? Maybe next.
Maybe next. Never say never.
All right. What's your favorite thing to eat for, like, you know, gig or performance or
after the gig?
After the gig.
Like the most gluttonous, nastiest shit you could eat.
Man, I mean, I don't even know how to answer that. Probably some wings. You know, that's my go-to.
Your go-to.
Can't go wrong with the wings.
Is there a particular routine or ritual that you do before a gig or performance?
There's a way I put my slip mats on. That's like a little bit of a thing where I spin it forwards and backwards one time on each side.
Really?
It's a little weird.
When did that start? When did that?
Since forever. I think it was originally to just check like how good the slip mats moved. To make sure I could get busy. But yeah, it's just a thing I do.
But was there like a time when you didn't do it and it was like a horrible night and you're like, I forgot to do that spinny shit?
I mean, to be honest, it's like my way of like checklisting the fact that I've got my slip mats set up properly.
And now it's a thing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so, you know, you've done a lot, of course, but what's the most memorable night of you DJing?
Man, the most memorable night of me DJing, That's a really hard one. I probably would say Big Daddy Kane, Rakim at Lincoln Center for Hip Hop 50.
That's crazy.
The truth is that that was a Wednesday, and that Saturday I DJ'd with Queen Latifah, Remy Ma, Mumu Fresh, and Moni Love at the Smithsonian. So it was like the most incredible week ever.
Wow.
Back to back, Kane, Rakim, and Latifah. So that's probably a tie.
That's big.
That's insane.
That's
man.
big.
Yeah.
What is your favorite song to end the night with when you DJ?
Probably Outkast, Spotty Yachty. Dope-alicious. Yeah.
Great song.
Yeah. Or I also used to love ending, if I'm doing a whole night with Frank Ocean, Thinking About You.
Okay, now you say you were trying to be a teacher before, but is there any other like talent or profession that you would do?
I mean, I was a visual artist, so, drawing, painting. I still am the art director for all of my kind of projects, although I have the good fortune of working with the incredible Dan Lish, illustrating a lot of the covers.
I was going to bring up Dan Lish, but I think, the work that he's been doing with, I Got a Story to Tell, and then all your live mixtapes, I'm a big fan, and it just meshes so well together.
Yeah.
And I actually wanted to reach out to you to maybe, I don't know, I'm sure that, Dan is like probably busy and everything, but I would love to work with him on at least one thing.
He might be coming out here this summer, actually.
Yeah?
So yeah, we'll see.
He's such a talent. He's so good.
He's amazing. I mean, I think, whatever I aspire to sonically, he does visually, which is just like his things are so dense and layered and stories and fantasy, and it's amazing. So shout out to Dan Lish for sure.
Yeah, it's. Did you find him on Instagram, or how did you find him?
Honestly, I walked into a gallery show in New York that was like a Native Tongues art show.
Yeah.
This girl Amy Cinnamon had put together, and I saw one of his pieces, a De La Soul piece. It's the only time I ever walked into a gallery, and I was like, "How much is that? I need to own that." And I bought it, and she connected me with him, and I pitched him the Outkast cover, which is like the Alice in Wonderland joint, and hired him for that. And, it was just off to the races from there.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Amazing. What's the biggest or best lesson you've ever learned in your time in this industry?
Don't do it for the money. Do it for the love.
Yeah.
Right there. That's it.
You've been following that motto for the last, 20, 30 years right now?
Yeah, I have. I mean, listen, it's also nice to do it for the money, but that can't be your motivation.
Right.
So you got to do it because you love it.
All right, this is one of those questions. It's your birthday, right? It's a 3-part question.
Yeah, you my man.
You can have any DJ living or past. You can have any performer living or past. And you can have any venue you want, open or closed. So which DJ, which performer, and which venue are you choosing for this ultimate birthday party?
I mean, Jazzy Jeff is a DJ, no question.
Yeah.
Performer, man, I'd say,
tough, right?
honestly, I probably would say Big Daddy Kane.
Big Daddy Kane.
Or Nas.
Wow.
I mean, personally for me, Nas, but Kane puts on a show, man.
Yeah. And then what venue?
What venue?
Open or close?
Hollywood Bowl.
Wow.
Nice. For a birthday joint too? That would be kind of hot.
That's crazy.
Yeah, man.
Who is someone that you'd like to say thank you to that you never got a chance to do that?
Man, Rich Nichols, manager for the Roots for many years. Rich is probably my first mentor, smartest guy I've ever met. Made it possible for me to rock with Black Thought, like kind of endorsed me to Black Thought before he really knew what was what. So I would say thank you to Rich.
That's great.
Yeah, man.
Last question. It's a little morbid, but as a DJ, I'm sure you'll appreciate it. If it was your funeral, right? What would you want the last song to be played at your funeral?
Or the record that you would be remembered?
Sheesh. The record that I made?
Oh, no, any song.
The last song I want to be played at my funeral?
Yeah.
Man, that's a tough one. I probably would say Fleetwood Mac Landslide.
Wow. Really?
What's the significance with that song for you?
Just family. My dad used to sing it. It's just like, I don't know, just have an emotional connection to that record.
Amazing.
Yeah.
J.Period. Thank you so much for coming through.
Yeah.
This is a long time coming.
Yeah, man.
And I'm just so good to see you anyway.
Yeah, likewise, man.
I
hope we covered all the proper ground here.
Probably not, but have you come back anytime,
yeah,
bro.
Come back with Questlove. Come back with Questlove.
There you go.
Yo, J.Period, thanks once again.
Yes, man.
Salud, bro.
Yes, man.
R.O.A.D.
Appreciate you guys.
If you want to watch more episodes from R.O.A.D Podcast, click either links on the left or the right. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page and get updated on new uploads throughout the week. Peace.